Welcome to Race Control, where we are now 27 hours into leg 8. Today is World Oceans Day, a cause very much at the heart of the Volvo Ocean Race. So it was only fitting that the fleet was greeted by a beautiful pod of dolphins. Here's Jean-Luc Nelius on board Montfray.
Dolphins are very beautiful. More beautiful than you, Francisco, and than me also. It was tricky, very complicated, a lot of variation in through in speed, in through in direction, taking, jibing, no wind. Abu Dhabi, Alvemedica and Brunel, and we are still together. We can see far ahead the girls leading the fleet with a good separation. On windward there is Team Vestas. He was close to the girl, in front of the girl in the middle of the night, and the girl escaped, so that's it. And we can't see Dongfeng, and Dongfeng looks a little bit of windward, but quite far behind. Like expected, there is a big separation in the fleet.
There was a big separation in the fleet. That was a little bit earlier when we talked to them this morning. Let's see what's happened since then. As we left the fleet earlier, they started to compress together a bit, with the offshore group coming back into shore as the breeze went left. But the inshore continued to pay the most, with Team SCA keeping the lead, Team Vestas Wind going from 5th back into 2nd. The trio of Brunel, Abu Dhabi and Montfray chasing tightly behind. But Alvemedica faltered west, dropping from 3rd to 6th, and Dongfeng still trails about 10 miles back. I believe we have Dongfeng on the line now, speaking with Skipper Charles Caudrelier. Charles, can you hear us?
Okay, just a second. Charles?
No problem. Thanks, Jan. That was Jan Ryu.
Hello.
Hello, Charles. Genny in Race Control. Thank you for taking the time. It sounds like it's been a little bit of a tough leg so far for you guys. Can you talk us through what's been happening?
Yeah, very bad start for us. Unfortunately, we were okay in the beginning of the night, and we made a mistake, and we had some trouble during the night, and we lost a lot. And since 5th morning, we are looking at the boat going away. A few hours ago, we could see Vestas, and now it's 20 miles ahead. And so it's not fun for us, and we are in a tricky situation for sure.
We heard as well that you had to send Eric up the rig for a sail repair. Can you tell us what happened there?
Yes, during we catch a big gust during the night and a big shift of the wind, and we tack with a sail in the opposite side, and then we made a small hole in the with a spreader. We made a small hole in the sail, so we have to fix it, and yeah, we lost also a bit of time about that with that. But anyway, the race is not over, but it's a difficult situation for us for sure.
Okay, but coming up next is basically the area that you're probably most familiar with, especially your team, the Bay of Biscay. Can you tell us how you could possibly use those tactics to your advantage?
Sorry, say again?
I'm saying you probably have the best local knowledge of any team with the Bay of Biscay coming up. How is that going to help you guys?
The best knowledge is only for the last 30 miles. So since that, I think everybody knows very well Cap Finisterre and Cabo Finisterre and all the place on the Biscay Gulf. So I don't think it will be an advantage before we arrive on the coast. But I'm afraid the game will be over before we arrive on the coast, on the French coast. So it's now we need to come back, and if we have to come back before Cabo Finisterre, after it will be difficult. There will be some opportunity, but we are really far away now, and we need to gain a few miles before we pass Cabo Finisterre.
So what is your strategy then to gain those miles before Cape Finisterre? Do you want to be inshore or offshore? How are you going to catch up at the front?
I think it's difficult to make a strategy because the wind is really shifty, and we are just following the wind. Make a strategy last night, and it was a mistake. I think we should have just follow the shift like the girls did. We were with the girls in the good position at the beginning of the side, on the right side of the fleet, and we changed our mind and we tried to come back with the left fleet, the fleet who was on the left, on the west part. And it was a huge mistake, and it cost us maybe 25 miles today. So no, I think we have to follow the shift and take care of the shadow when we approach Cabo Finisterre. But it's really difficult. All the weather forecasts are completely bad and lost. And so for the moment, I think everybody has the same strategy: follow the shift of the wind and try not to fall in the shadow, in the light spots.
Well, we hope it works out with you before Cape Finisterre. Thanks so much for joining us, Charles, and we will be checking back up with him soon. But right now, I think I'm joined live with Katie Pettibone on Skype, two-time Volvo Ocean Race veteran, America's Cup sailor, and current Olympic sailor. Katie, thanks so much for joining us. We were just speaking with Dongfeng Race Team, who perhaps have the most solo Volvo Ocean Race and solo ocean racing experience, but haven't done so well in the import series. We've seen Team SCA do quite well in the import series, and now they are leading this leg. Were you expecting that?
I always thought Team SCA would really come back in these short legs. They have great tactical experience with Sally Barco calling tactics, and obviously some really good inshore match racers on board. So I'm really psyched to see them doing really well here, and I did expect that. I think that it's going to get interesting around this Cape Finisterre, where it gets pretty gnarly, big waves and wind, and how people manage the boat through the waves, the speeds, and also when they start short tacking and you're doing the transition between waves and wind, how that's going to play out. Hopefully, Team SCA will keep that lead and get a podium position on this. That's sure what I would be looking for. But there is a lot of game left, and anything can happen. So it should be exciting.
Looking at their position now, if you're a Team SCA, are you just covering the pack, or are you continuing with your strategy going forward? Earlier today, we heard basically their strategy was to get northmost, to be the northmost boat. But now, clearly, they've gone in front of the rest of the fleet into shore. Once they all tack back out, do you think that's a covering scenario?
Well, I do think these boats and the one design nature of these boats are lending themselves to really close covering tactics. So I think they are going to still probably need to sail the shift as we even heard Dongfeng say they're going to do. But I think they're going to have to now transition to also kind of that covering mode of the fleet. You don't want to let anybody get in a patch of water and wind that might let them escape. So it'll be kind of a tight rope to walk between the two. And so we'll probably see them do a bit of both. But, they're going to have to play the shift. That's what got them there. But now you have to also play the covering game.
Okay, let's talk about the leaders overall now. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, they have to protect against two boats at this period of time. They have to protect against Brunel and Dongfeng Race Team. They went with Brunel last night. Dongfeng split. They had a bad night, as they've said. Now that they're back in the pack, do you think you sort of try to stay close to Brunel, or what is their strategy?
I think their strategy is going to be stay closer to Brunel, keep a wary eye on Dongfeng, who's now got a lot to gain by playing a little more risky strategy. So they're going to have to walk a tightrope. Similarly to Team SCA, they're going to have to cover but keep their eye on Dongfeng, and so. It's funny because I imagine them trying to, like a sheep herding dog trying to corral two sheep, and the sheep are running in different directions. You're going to have some trouble. So at the same time, you're going to continue to play the shift and play to win. So when you start playing to not lose, that's a dangerous place to be. And I expect them to still continue to try to play to win this, keeping a wary eye on the competitors.
Okay, let's talk now about the mentality on board. They've gone from some pretty light air sailing last night and earlier today to building breeze throughout the day, and we know that they're expecting about 35 knots plus and huge seas. I mean, essentially the Bay of Biscay and Cape Finisterre are going to deliver everything that sailors know that it's capable of delivering. How do you gear up for that when you're in sort of lighter, not easier mode, but just lighter mode on board?
I think this is going to be really interesting, actually, because gearing up for that heavy weather sailing is going to be you're pushing everything to the limit, but you got to make it to the end without too much gear breakage. I've sailed in those waters. Actually, people ask me what's the worst storm you've ever been. It's been in the Bay of Biscay. It's this terrible waves. I mean, it's just incredible what kind of conditions they can have. So I think it's going to be a shock to the system. The veterans are going to adapt well, seen there, been there, done that. But you're still going to have to push. And for Team SCA, what will be really interesting is they sat around Cape Horn that they had backed down, and it was about getting there, but they wish they'd push harder. This is going to be an opportunity to say, okay, we're going to sail differently. We're going to push harder. It's balls to the wall kind of sailing, and let's get a podium. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how you transition to the lighter air, flat water, and as these waves build and the wind builds, and these boats start launching off of these waves. It's going to be interesting. People are going to be seasick. There will be gear breakages, and how you manage that all with tactics is complicated.
It is quite difficult. And gear breakages, we actually could take a quick look back. We had an interview on board Dongfeng Race Team earlier where Eric Perron told us about having gone up the rig to check out the sail. Let's look at that really quickly.
During a nasty gust last night, the spreader just came through the MH0, so we have a hole.
Okay.
So now we need. So I went up to the mast to fix it. I try all my possible, but I'm not sure it will stick enough. So now we just need to cross the finger to don't break the sail.
Okay, let's take a quick look now at the actual weather that we can see from grid files coming up. Katie's been telling us how gnarly it can be. Here's Cape Finisterre. Just after Cape Finisterre is Costa da Muerta. In English, those mean Land's End and the Coast of Death. So with the 35 knots and the big seas, it's definitely in line for the sailing lore of that area. Katie, tell us one story that you have about sailing in the Bay of Biscay and around Cape Finisterre.
A great story was when I was training for the Whitbread 97, 98, and it was with Team EF. And at that time, the fabled Laurie Smith from Great Britain, a tremendous around the world sailor, was the male skipper, and we were with the women's team. But we sailed mixed, and we were doing a trial run from England down around the Horn, or around the corner there to go to Portugal. And we were sailing along, racing the two boats, and I was with Laurie. And this storm started to build on us, and sure enough, we stayed out in it. The other boat went to port, which was the smart move. And we stayed out in it, and as the dawn broke and we could see the waves, I remember turning around looking behind me because we're running with the storm, and the waves were far above our mast, which in the Whitbread 60s was 86 feet. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm not going to turn around anymore. I'm just going to worry about sailing the boat ahead of me. And sure enough, it was pretty gnarly. We ended up in Bilbao, the last port we could get into. We had life rafts on deck, and we weren't quite sure whether we were going to be able to make the port because the winds were upwards of 70 knots. And I thought to myself, this is pretty gnarly. Do I really want to go around the world? And I said to Laurie Smith, yeah, that wasn't much fun. And he said, if you can survive that, you're ready for the Whitbread.
You can survive anything.
So I did it.
Well, now we have navigator of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Simon Fischer, on the line. Sci-Fi, we were just talking about how gnarly Cape Finisterre and the Bay of Biscay can be. Can you tell us what you're expecting coming up? We were just talking about Cape Finisterre and the Bay of Biscay, and we were talking about how gnarly it can be. Can you tell us what you're expecting coming up?
Yeah, it's not going to be much fun, I don't think, that's for sure. No, we're probably expecting winds in excess of 40 knots when we go past Finisterre. Obviously going to be on the wind. It's not going to be a very nice sea state either, so yeah, we're really going to be looking after the boat rather than flogging every hundredth of a knot out of it. It's going to be a period of the race, so we're going to have to be really quite careful with the boat, make sure we don't break anything, keep everything in one piece, and yeah, maybe sacrifice a little bit of the optimum route just to manage the sea state and the wind.
We've got Katie Pettibone with us today, Sci-Fi. Katie, do you have any questions for him?
Yeah, I was going to ask, how are you going to play the wind in the waves? Are you going to hug the shore, or are you going to kind of play until the sea state gets so bad that you'll go back into shore? How's that strategy going to work for you?
Well, it'll be quite tricky. We spent quite a lot of time looking at it before the race, and yeah, we know where we can hug the shore initially around Finisterre and the next couple of capes, and I think it's okay to be quite close.
Oh no, we've just lost them. Okay, well, we'll let it go there. We do know it will be gnarly for them overnight. We're hoping that everyone gets around Cape Finisterre and gets along Costa de Muerte safely, and we'll be back checking in with them just after sunrise tomorrow. They should round, and we will be here at 8 a.m. UTC. See you then.